Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Mind Voice, the podcast that loves to go in depth with individuals externally and internally. Today, I welcome an individual that I'm extremely indebted to, extremely thankful, extremely grateful for having him in my life. He's taught me in school and even taught me in life without him even having to teach me. I'm extremely grateful for. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Brendan. It's Mr. K. I can't pronounce it for the life of me.
That's okay. That's why Brendan is fine.
Brendan is a candidate of University of Edinburgh on focusing on teenage boys and emotionals and masculinity. Thank you for being here, and thank you for wanting to listen to my story and understanding the forms of the current events of every single day. It happens. Sometimes it doesn't even get broadcast on the internet. And things like this is good to have, even though we haven't talked in so long. It's great to catch up with you, and it's great for you to even message me and wanting to come on my podcast and interview me. And I'm extremely grateful for that, Mr. K.
Oh, thanks. I'm extremely bold to ask to go on someone else's podcast to interview them. The story behind it is that I used to teach Abe in a couple of classes, but one of them was social justice, and I did a unit about racism. And it was a fine unit, I think, at least from my perspective. But I feel like there's a turning point in the class, which is predominantly white. Langley's like 78% white, something around there. And Abe, being very vulnerable, volunteered to share his experience with race and said, like, at least every day, he was confident that walking in Langley, he would get called the N-word at least once. And I just remember that moment kind of just changing the importance, or it just brought it home to myself, but to a lot of Abe's classmates who really appreciated him in the class, of just the connection of someone that we care about. Their experiences in Langley is probably very different than myself, who grew up in Langley my whole life, not super exposed to the experiences of people of color in Langley. And so I think with all of the timely things going on, Black Lives Matters movement, there's just a lot of things to talk about, and that people in Langley or beyond could learn. And I'm just excited to learn and hear more about Abe's story as well, because I didn't hear tons while I taught him. But yeah, my first question to you, Abe, is just like, what was your first experience or earliest memory of racism?
Well, it shocks individuals when I speak about this, because my first experience of racism is not with a white individual, which it was historically, it's right there, it's rooted. And I tend to be scared to tell this story, but in a way it's just like I'm very
is it because you're afraid to share it because it's not a white person who's being racist in the story?
Yeah.
And are you worried that it's mean to another race, or are you worried that white people will wash their hands and being like, see, other people can be racist too?
Yeah, I don't want to, like, some people get mad because I don't fit their narrative. And I'm not trying to put in a narrative. I don't try to put in an ideology. It's my own subjective personal experience, and it tends to be a lot of other individuals just like myself, like colored, Latino, that experience this at times. I've only met like a handful at least.
And well, yeah, there's this whole academic debate about racism, about people in power and systems in power are the only things that are able to be racist, but that other groups can have racial prejudice or things like that. And we don't need to get into that discussion in this podcast. So I just want you to speak from your experience. I know we've talked, I know you've experienced racism across the spectrum of other races.
Yeah.
So just share your experience with no disclaimer going forward of just what's your first memory with racism, if you're willing to share.
So I grew up in Newton, Surrey, and the area was majority East Indian. And I went to majority East Indian school. There's obviously white children. I had a couple friends that were Latino, only two Latinos I knew there. And personally, I I went to a school young, so I didn't really have these conditionings or even concept of racism. Obviously, I'm 5, and I got there, and I'm a very friend. Like I'm very outgoing. I'm very extroverted,
Mhm.
and I've been there. I've been there. I'm still am. And I decided to go up to a bunch of children that, in a way, I feel comfortable because they have a same skin color as me in a way. Obviously, I'm very nice to the white kids, but I'm just like, oh, these guys are Latino too. Like, because I've been going to church since I was like a baby, and and I would always see brown folks, and they would always be giving me food, hugs, kisses. I'm like, all right, that's all I know. So I'm
Mhm.
like, all right, I see these individuals. I go up to them, I start talking to them. They kind of look at me like I shot someone, or as if I was a ghost, and they kind of just like mumble, because I don't doubt that um, they knew themselves after before their parents. I have no idea, because these people clicked right away, and I decided to like kind of go out and about, and I started like pushing my friendship, not like passive aggressively, but I remember I was just like, let's play, da, da, da. And then they're just like, no, you're the wrong Brown.
Mm.
And that sat with me for a bit, and I internalized that into being that something was wrong with me, as being the wrong Brown, whatever that means.
Mm.
And I did that uh, it generally made me feel left out. So it pushed me to, in a way, be a people pleaser and want to have more friends. And I'd kind of like in a way just wash their shoes, do everything for them, and try to be like, try to like, no, myself is not good enough. I gotta be them. They gotta love me for their own image of what they think of who I am.
Would you say that you felt like you had to compensate for your skin color? Did you ever have that feeling?
Elaborate on competitive.
Like you said that if the message that you're the wrong type of brown, or thinking if that was internalized that there's something wrong with you, um, but then you said that kind of sparked like being a people pleaser, trying to make people like you, to think that there's not something wrong with you. Did you feel like your race was, or your skin color was an impediment to being liked, something that you had to overcome?
Yeah, in a way, I guess it internalized a lot more throughout my teenage years, but we can get to that. And it didn't I wasn't proud of being me. And as bad as that sound, my mom would always be like, be proud of who you are, not just because you're Latino, but because you're you. And she
Mm,
continuously say that. Like,
mm,
she'd always say, be humble, be kind, and be respectful. And even besides that, I feel like I internalized that, and I didn't even set any boundaries for. Obviously, I'm 5 years old. I don't even know what boundaries are, but I let them walk all over me just so I could even be with them.
mm. Yeah, and um, you said that you said a comment in passing of like, obviously I was nice to the white people. What do you mean by that?
I was
Or is that something that's carried on throughout life, or you just mean just in grade age 5, or is there something?
I was obviously like, when I said that I saw people that looked like me, I was obviously kind to these individuals that weren't the same color as me, because I'm
Mm,
not gonna about to be like, oh, you're white, get away from me, man. No, I was like, hey guys, da 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 da, and they were like, hi, da da da, and they were just like slower. I've had like, not slower, but it's just like, why did I say that? I meant to say like, they were I had a lot of energy, and I was around a lot of music, and I'm always just like jumping and screaming, and they were just kind of like quiet and just nervous. Their mom's there. My mom just left me and dipped. She's like, go be you.
mm,
And I was trying to make friends, but I saw a group of them, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna subject myself to them. These people are like me. I'm gonna do this. And obviously, I was 5 years old. I didn't know any better, but or
yeah, so there's there's something, like I know many people of different ethnic minorities who have been like ashamed and still are to this day of like, I don't want people to know that I'm Métis or First Nations. Or even in when I was living in Scotland, there's something called the Scottish cringe of trying to hide your accent, your thick Scottish accent, because it's not as posh, or it's the social, you can kind of see a social status or social hierarchy there. But what would you say your journey's been like with accepting yourself and your identity and your race as part of that?
well, I knew that it was a huge part of me all throughout high school because majority of my friends were white.
Mm.
And obviously I have some African Canadian friends and beautiful people, beautiful individuals. But we went to different schools, and I went to Poppy, and it was like I've only met like a handful of the colored individuals. Even when Michael Gabriel, I interviewed him. Actually, beautiful
Oh,
part.
awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
beautiful episode. It was gorgeous, and we connected obviously, and it was just. But I saw them, and they were very flamboyant, very out there, because they were screaming, really didn't care, and I could see I could see that in when I was in grade 3 to even being in grade 8, because it was it was the majority. Even when I moved to Langley, it was still the majority. I was the only dark kid there in
Mhm.
my first ever grade 3 class, or
Yeah.
grade 4 class. Yeah. So it got to the point where it's just like, all right, this is what I'm gonna deal with. This is what I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it mine. I'm gonna make it so it works for my world as well, in a way that like I just had to uh, um, placate towards them.
So you felt like that need to placate, as in, like, do you feel like you silenced yourself about conversations about
Yeah.
race?
Yes. Because I didn't. It's not that I didn't think it mattered. It's just like, okay, like they're gonna be friends with me either way. I had that bias because I had that uh, thought process as well.
Hmm. Towards yourself, like you had the thought process of bias towards people of color, or
No, no.
what?
I felt as if I'm like, okay, if they're not gonna start the conversation about racism or race, I'm not gonna do it,
Gotcha. But you
because
would
that
be.
could ruin a Oh, that could ruin a friendship.
Mm. So parts of conversation of your identity, like race, that matter to you, you didn't talk about,
Yeah, I suppressed it.
suppressed it, which is, like, it actually makes total sense if you look at from it from like a survival adaptability standpoint. I'm sure. Have you heard of like
Fight or flight. Yeah.
fight or flight? And then there's actually another F, freeze response, which is like numbing, like not saying anything, which gets more relevant when you're talking
Deer in
about
the headlights.
cases. Yeah, but we won't talk about sexual assault or sexual abuse. Actually, it's such an important topic too. I just want to say that when I can't stand when people blame, like, oh, you didn't fight back or you didn't run away, when they blame a victim of sexual
Yeah.
assault.
You
It's like,
never blame the victim. You
yeah,
blame.
but also, like, you actually don't know about like the neurobiology, the biology of adrenaline of making you have a freeze response is a
Yeah.
legitimate thing.
Yeah.
But rabbit trail aside, the fourth F word is fawning response. And fawning is what you talked about, people pleasing, of you're in a survival, stressful, potential trauma situation.
You ever
You're
watch Big
gonna be.
Brother?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. It's kind of like that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm sure this it's such every social game has people who are placators in it, and that's a way to survive. And it sounds like that's one strategy you employed by not having these conversations about race, although they were important to you.
Yeah.
You didn't want to upset the status quo
Yeah.
of other
I don't
people.
want to upset the masses.
So, do you feel like upsetting the masses now? Like,
So
I kind of made that.
excuse my language, Mr. K, but fuck no. I really don't care anymore. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
like I really don't. I really don't anymore.
So, what changed to make you not placate and acquiesce to other people's things about race? Like, it sounds like, I'm not sure if this was in this conversation or leading up to it. You talked about Black Lives Matter, that movement was like when that became more prominent. Did that give you more? Did that embolden you more to use your voice?
No, Tupac did.
Oh, please explain.
Tupac, this is a rambunctious individual, but he was a revolutionary. He explained, he's so young too, extremely young, very motivated, and I listened to all his music very introspectively. Like I
Oh,
break
his
down the
lyrics, yeah,
it's
it's great.
gorgeous. He's a beautiful storyteller, and he actually uh my grad quote was one of his lyrics. It says, "The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I say the darker the flesh, then the sweeter the roots."
Mm.
So I put that on my grad quote. to just kind
Wow.
of to just kind of be like, I am proud of me.
Wow. That, yeah, that has such strong racial connotations to that,
Yeah.
those lyrics. That's amazing. I'm glad you were able to do that in grade 12 and put that in there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Um, interesting when you talk about rap, or like it's so interesting that one, it's often has been devalued by mainstream society for like in the Emmys or Grammys, I guess.
Yeah, they had
Uh,
their own, like they had the Soul Trains, and then they had the BETs. That's so they didn't have to go to the Grammys. So they created the BET Awards because they didn't want to like, and then they call urban rap or whatever.
yeah, and it's also funny with the research that like, oh, what's the stat? 7 out of every 10 rap albums bought by a white boy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Every time I go to a concert, and I went to a concert, and it was like one of my favorite concert. His name is Tyler the Creator, and he's
yep.
very black. And there was just so many white boys, and I was like, "Yo, what's good, guys?" I loved it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and actually we could probably have the whole conversation just talking about rap or just how, um, but it's really cool to hear how um, empowering Tupac, the artist,
Yeah.
was for you.
It was
And
more than just the music too. He really stood up for who he was.
hmm,
And he, like, with there was an officer, and this story woke me up. Like it kind of, I kind of get chills. There was an officer that was racially profiling him, and he had a gun that it was he had a gun that he took out without even what is that word? I don't remember the word, but he had a gun that he was an officer, but he was in an officer, and
oh, a
he was
civilian
in
clothing, or he
he
wasn't.
was yeah he was in work he was working at the time, and but he had the gun on him. And
Mhm.
you can't, I don't believe you can carry in LA, but you can carry in Atlanta, but I don't think you can carry in LA.
Yeah, no, often not major cities, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't carry in LA. And I believe he beat Tupac up. I could get this whole story wrong. I haven't really, but he beat Tupac up, and then Tupac shot him with his like officer's gun,
Wow.
and he got away with it because it was self-defense, and
Yeah.
people got enraged. So he started to create the character. He started to create the villain, and that's why I kind of loved it, because he was not placating to the masses, and
Hmm.
they were trying to destroy him each bit by bit. And
Hmm.
in a way, I feel as if even when I graduated, that's how I feel today, because I there's a quote my mom used to say, people don't uh, people don't define you, they define themselves. When they talk about you, they're not talking about themselves. And I've had individuals say, oh, hey, they're saying this about you, they're saying, like, I really don't give a damn. I
Hmm.
really don't, because I'm doing this for me. Even this podcast, people are just like, oh, well, what if you don't succeed? I'm like, well, my definition of success is completely different than yours. I
Hmm.
really don't care.
Yeah.
Like it got to the point where I got fed up that I became the supervillain. And I don't think I'm the supervillain, but in a way I feel as it, because I'm screaming, I don't really give up.
And is this just in general? Is this, are you also talking specifically about talking about race and racial
race
injustice?
race everything. Like I just I got to the point where I'm proud of being me.
That's so awesome to hear. I'm so
But
glad
obviously there's like the
that point.
trenches to getting to that point. I wasn't just always all beautiful. There's dark forms of suffering within my life
Yeah.
that majority of my friends even are not even to be like, whoa, Abraham, what the hell? But yes, I was never always happy. And even when I was happy, I was faking it just so other people wouldn't feel down. Because if I felt down, because I was majority of the time I was depressed because I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I would always ask my friends, who am I? I would ask my mom, who am I? I would ask my dad, who am I? I asked all my friends, who am I?
Mm.
But I would never ask myself that question for
Mm.
some reason.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it seems like everyone, every human being goes first through a search of identity, but not every human being has their race play such a part of their experience based on the context on this earth. Like,
Even when
uh,
you say that, sorry to cut you off, Mr.
yeah, yeah, do it.
Even when you say that, like it's gonna be really hard to say. Uh, the girls,
Hmm.
like all my friends were getting girls, and I'm like, am I attractive? am I pretty? I don't even know. And some girls would say, "Oh, you're cute." I'm like, well, "Would you date me?" Like, walk away. But I don't mind it. Like that, I'm not entitled to that love. But
You're not entitled to it, but you're allowed to, yeah, you're allowed to question and wonder how much race has to play within
and
the.
it just started feeling weird because all my friends are getting girlfriends, and I'm just sitting there, and the first person to throw me a bone, I'd go to, and that would end up as a toxic relationship because I don't even have any metric of values. And
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
not playing victim, by the way. I have as much accountability to take for the toxic relationship as the other individual, but
mm,
I'm not an angel.
mm. Thank you for clarifying that. I wasn't getting that sense, but I think what I was hearing is that without your core identity piece grounded there, there's a lot of your life was spent l- outwardly looking and
Inwardly.
not centered, not
Yeah.
grounded
Yeah.
in your own identity. Um, yeah, you said that like a lot of your friends probably don't even know what you went through regarding.
They're probably gonna even be surprised I even posted this. Because
Mm,
it takes I don't even like I didn't even know if I wanted to have this conversation, but I was like, screw it. I'm gonna talk. I'm this it's a platform people really need because I don't doubt
mm,
excuse me, I'm drinking a lot of sugar. I don't doubt that a lot of people have experienced the same thing.
mm,
Excuse me. Um, I've had conversations with the three people, but I don't know everyone in the world. So I feel as if it could help just one individual just feel as if, look, man, like I'm, you're not alone in a way. As cliche as it sounds, I don't know you, but I'm here and I've experienced pain. Maybe it's completely different pain, but that's what empathy brings. Is
yeah. Well, there's just so much. Like everyone has gone through pain for sure in their life, but um, but there is lacks of empathy when people have different experiences from you as well.
yeah,
Like even the research that talks about bullying in schools is that teachers are more likely to step into bullying if they can personally relate to the situation or to the person being bullied.
like that
Essentially, if
huge
they see,
bias. Yeah,
yeah, essentially, if they see themselves in the situation, especially in the victim being bullied, they're more likely to step in.
yeah.
Um,
And that's funny that you say that because me and my brother would be getting bullied like all majority of the time throughout our elementary years and stuff. I've seen him get beat up, and you don't know like really. Are you an only child?
no, I have two older sisters.
Well, imagine you have an older brother, right?
Hmm.
And you see him like get like brought up, and you see him getting beat up, and you have no power, you have no nothing. So and just seeing that uh,
Normalized.
normalized and not physically in a way it can be physically or not physically, verbally as well, verbal abuse as well, passive aggressiveness. But it gets to a point where it it tended to internalize into elementary school as well because I was telling you that story of I don't maybe this went past my head, maybe I don't know at this point, maybe I'm thinking way too much of it. But when I was helping, me and my brother were helping put chairs down for an assembly, the principal of all people said, "Hey, can you put those chairs back? We don't like brown in the school."
Wow. We don't
And
look around in the school. Like what
I don't. That's what
was
I
this?
mean. Like, how do I feel about it? I remember me and my brother looking at each other like, "What? Did she just say that? Are we supposed to take that as offense?" And then my mom, God bless my mother. She's a wild, loving mother. She would go to school. She would scream with the kids, man. Anybody who was bullying me and my brother, man. But besides that, it would internalize in that.
So if like it sounded like it sounded like you felt like there was no one looking out for you
Yeah.
at from the school side of things.
It felt like no one was looking out for me in general. I
Hmm.
don't even know if I could trust my friends, but I wanted to be friends still because I didn't want to be lonely.
Totally.
So I
Oh,
was lost as hell. Like, where was I supposed to go? Where am I supposed to go? Where am I? How am I supposed to feel? And it got to the point where it's just like, all right, I'm just gonna let that be. And
and
then
and it's and it seems so much more, sorry to interrupt you there, it seems more painful because then the search for identity, there's so little role models or people to turn to that
right.
have maybe a similar experience about meeting
Yes.
their racial identity. Like for instance, if you adopt someone from a different race than yours, like the best practice for their well-being, if you are not the same race as the person you adopted, is to get them connected with their racial community as
Yeah.
well. And that is super
But
important.
the thing is that what brought me like really peace, because I would go to church every Sunday, and I went to an all culture church. Like there was Cubans, Dominican Republics, uh, Mexicans, all these different cultures, all these different cultures. So I would kind of like want to be stuck in that forever, because we would hear so many dialects. It was so beautiful. We would celebrate every single country that like spoke like Spaniard country every single Sunday.
Hmm.
Like we'd have to we'd appreciate
Yeah.
the food, we'd appreciate everything. And I was like, yes, I love this. And that's what kind of brought me into empathy in a way. But then when I go to school, I'd hear all my white little friends, and I obviously there was like some Filipino kids, but I didn't really talk to them. They were a little quiet. They were exchange students. It would be there was a block. What was it?
Language barrier.
Language barrier, and I was very kind to them. I'd always be kind. Still always. But then I'd hear my white friends be racist. Oh, it's just a joke, man. Oh, how is it? I'm not saying it to you, man.
So like you'd hear white friends say racist things, although they're still like they're genuine friends of yours, but you even within your own friend circle, there was racism going on.
Oh yes, 100%. And it feels again, you feel powerless.
Mhm.
You feel powerless, and it brings back to the point where just like I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to say. Am I a coward? Yeah, like at the time, most likely I was a kid, so I obviously I would bash myself. This is where I bash my past. I don't do it anymore. Obviously, I've made in a way peace with myself, but
Mhm.
I would bash my past, and I would bash myself and bash and bash. And even like when I graduated, it started to get off topic. I was like you're nothing.
Mhm. Uh, I feel emotion well up in my body because um yeah, I don't, it's uncomfortable to sit with you not liking yourself, but I know that feeling personally, and that like thank you for that just honest vulnerable sharing. um yeah, and
It got to the point where as well as like even high school, like because I went to high school in Brookswood, and I did bad things, like not bad things. I didn't kill anybody or like stab anybody, but I wanted to be friends with like those kids that I was like, oh, those kids don't screw with those kids. I was like,
mm,
oh, don't screw with those kids. I'm gonna go be friends with those kids, and I
mm,
did. I did go be friends with those kids.
mm,
They didn't do this like it took a while, but in a way it brought me into some comfort, because they didn't really obviously they didn't really see like they weren't racist, but they're some bad kids. But and I decided like even I brought that to Poppy, and then when I went to Poppy, because it was completely different because of Mr. Morsey.
can you, well, I don't know how many of your audience knows, so Mr. Murthy is Sri Lanka,
Oh
Sri,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Sure. I don't even know. Like I
yeah,
know
pretty sure it is.
I think he's explained it. I can't even pronounce his country. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Morley, if you ever listen. I saw Mr. Morley like a year ago.
Oh,
God
awesome.
bless you, Mr.
Okay,
Morley.
sorry, that was kind of beside the point, but just for context. So what changed at Poppy, or what was different about Mr. Moore? The
Well, it's not. Well, he was like colored as well, but it's not like he favorited me because I was colored. I felt I felt equal because my shit stinked as much as the other kids. So I would get in trouble for something because sometimes I felt like I was put the finger in. I was blamed just because of my color, and even though like I would take the blame as well sometimes, because I'm like, oh no, I can't get my friends in trouble. But I
Mhm.
feel as if it was always continuously pushed towards me, and it could I could be wrong. I don't know. I really don't.
Well, there's two things to add in there before I want to talk about Mr. Moore a bit more. Um, is that like there's the research about bias, like there's a lot of teacher bias on the subconscious. Like they've done research that like if you just change the names of teachers marking math tests or English exams just from like black sounding names to white names to Hispanic names, and then they interview the teachers and then the exact same tests, and you interview the teachers of like how smart or intelligent do they think they are, they always um, rate white kids' things as higher um, than black and other ethnicities. And there's also a lot of research showing that adults, especially white adults, tend to overestimate the ages of colored children. So like they view them as older or as more mature. So like um, especially boys of a certain color are viewed as more guilty or culpable, as more like criminally, they're more likely to be tried older age as well, especially in the States. So there is tons of research about biases being subconscious and maybe not being intentional. Um, but there's this sense from your story that, yeah, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought, but there's a sense that having a principal who was someone of color had like a shared experience with you, and that wasn't a hindrance. Like for once, that wasn't a factor.
Yeah, I felt safe because not because he was colored, but because I'm like, yeah, I know damn well if I do something bad, and if the person next to me does something bad, we're gonna get equally as in trouble.
So, like theoretically, do you think that would have been possible with a white principal, or it's just?
Good question, Mr.
K. Or is it like, so theoretically, is that possible, or do you think actually no, like this was needed to like kind of reset some experiences you've had?
Obviously, it had to evaporate some of my perceptions on that situation, so I wouldn't feel that way. Subconsciously, I might have been like, yeah, this man is black. I feel safe. But at the same time, I'm not gonna get away with anything I do. I'm not gonna be like, he's not gonna be like, what's up, my brother? Like we the same. Like we ain't gonna do. You can do whatever you want. No, it's not gonna be like that. But my prior high school, I can't deny that that's how I felt. That's how my brother felt as well. I can't really speak for my brother a lot, but I know damn well we've had this conversation. Because when my brother got sorry.
Yeah, just that your experience is that you were seen for your behaviors and who you were without there being another filter, another
yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
I just got a cramp in my leg.
I remember what I was gonna say before, which I just literally forgot as I just told you.
Oh my goodness, Mr. K. This is horrible. My leg.
But I did want to ask you about this was it. Is that you know how like in the media, if there's a white shooter, the media often uses the word shooter as opposed to killer or something like that.
And like terrorist and
yeah, and they attribute it to mental health issues. Whereas if it has something to do, like if it's a black person that did the crime or did the shooting, or if it was Muslim, you attribute it to as being representative of the entire race, of the entire religion.
Yeah, from our own interpretations,
That's kind of like a divide between like, it's like a psychological assumption or bias that we have, is that we attribute things that like are more known to us. We make accounts for that. Like, oh, okay, I'm a white person. I see a white person do that. That's going to be more like a mental health issue because no the right mind would do that. But then if you see someone that's different than you, we have this cognitive bias to not see that as closely related to ourselves.
You have absolutely no idea how many times people walk like I'm walking on the same street on the other side. That actually happened the other day. My girlfriend lives in a beautiful neighborhood, and I was walking on the street to go walk to her house, and this old couple, I don't know, I guess it was because of I don't know if it was because of COVID. I don't really, I can't be like,
I think it's like, I imagine, let's even say it was and you were wrong, but I don't think that's the case. you're like, I feel like you're being super gracious of all these situations, which might be possible as well. But it sounds like, and I've talked with you before this interview, of there just being a plethora of experiences throughout your life that at some point it's not coincidence all the time.
You, I just get so many looks, Mr. Gay. Like throughout my life, I just get these mean looks. Like I know someone can understand. They just, even my girlfriend sees them looking at me like that. They look at, like, it's just this look I get, Mr. K. I don't know how to explain it. It's just this look. Every time I look around, like someone's just looking at me. I can feel these eyes on me. And I'm not saying that I was like, oh, they'll only look at me because my looks are this, but it just, even when I'm walking down the street and someone's driving and they will just, and there's this cold look, Mr. K. And I just don't know. I'm kind of driving myself insane right now, even trying to elaborate on what the hell that is.
Yeah, well, it's like, one, it's your experience, but I can say, like, from hearing a huge majority of the population of people of color, that is for sure an experience that is not unique to yourself. Like, there's, like, you also go, like, the research about like so many women, it's like there's been a study that like 80% of women have felt stared at or sexualized by strangers in public.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a shared experience. And I think your example, your story, your experience is a felt experience that is felt by many people of color. So yeah, for what it's worth, I don't think I don't think that sounds, I don't think that's, you're being crazy of over analyzing things.
Yeah.
I just want, like, can you answer, like, how does that feel? Like, does it feel dehumanizing? Does it feel like people don't see you? Like,
I play this facade, chest up, don't even look, confident look. Deep down, I'm dying, Mr. Gay. I don't ask. I didn't ask for those looks. Like, I would get them, and I see them. Even the other day when I was walking down the street just to go to my girlfriend's house, and this old couple just, I had my mask on and everything. I had my mask on, and I parted because the sidewalk was this big, and they were right here, and I was right here. And then I was like, all right, this is literally 6 feet apart. They can walk past me and nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen. I'm not even paying attention to them. I'm not even giving eye contact. I'm not even gonna, like, in a way, I was just like, I'm gonna avoid these individuals. I have my music in, and then, like, I'm walking. I'm not even looking. Like, I'm like looking at the left, and then I'm like turning, and then, boom, cross path. In my head, I'm trying to like make them look like the good guy. Like, maybe their house is there. Maybe they're just going to their house. Maybe they're just doing that. But I turn back.
Your brain, you're literally trying to make sense of all these other things, like all these other possibilities, so that it's not race is the reason for it.
And I look back, and they were just went to the stoplight. They could have went to the same. They could have went to the stoplight that was there.
Yeah. I just cognizant a little bit of time, and I want to ask you a couple more things still. You mentioned, like, what you're doing about, like, you not even wanting to be interviewed. I didn't know that before doing that. Like,
I was a bit scared.
Like, in my own, like, research about, like, masculinity, like, when I talk about, like, emotional expression or things like that, is that, like, boys who are not emotionally expressive, they didn't start that way for no reason. There was always a reason for it, and it was a good reason at the time that was necessary and advantageous for them in their situation. So I just want to hope that, like, I want you to actually be okay, and you're afraid you can not send this out as well, because there can be real consequences. It's like, if a boy has a parent that is super sexist or super homophobic and doesn't want, like, doesn't want their son to take part in dancing, and then all of a sudden this boy feels empowered to dance. Like there could be real life consequences to just saying like I want to take up dance to your parents. Like there could be real life consequences with your friends coming after this. So I want to ask you two questions about that. It's like, one, do you feel like if you want to take the opportunity to say things that you wish you could have said to your friends in high school, I want to give you that opportunity if that doesn't feel
Wow,
too
that's
raw.
no. This is good. Well, first off, um, thank you for accepting me. Uh, but the person that you thought that I wasn't that. I was extremely ignorant to my own self. I didn't even know who I was. I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'm kind of happy that I won't. I don't feel like I will ever, because I feel as if I do, I'll limit myself to different things. But I'm extremely grateful for learning through those adversities of my emotions, even when it came to being understanding my own culture and understanding my own race. Because now I can see the bigger picture. I can understand the bigger picture, and I can paint the picture itself. So I understand that some people just, again, they have their own cognitive dissonance. They don't even know what they're doing. They're ignorant to ignorance, and it could be like I could have seen that the whole time. I was watching that ignorance, and I didn't say anything because of my own. So just, I feel as if I don't care about your apologies, because I already apologized myself for putting myself through that.
So on that note, the friends that will listen to this and might wonder if they should talk to you or like how to talk to you.
You can talk, like anyone is welcome. Mr. K, we haven't talked in 5 years. I was more than welcome, because I knew that I don't judge you because your interpretations, I judge you for your intention. And I don't, like, you had a beautiful intention coming here and wanting to talk to me, because just to understand someone who's been through it, and to the fact that you hold that certain experience of social justice in your heart to this day still, I'm extremely grateful, like, for real.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess in my own journey and life experience is that I can't not be moved by people's experiences. And I don't want to let myself not be moved by people's experiences of their realities in this world. But I think what you were saying reminds me of all the research that like well-intentioned for like my era, like let's not talk about race. The way to reduce racism is like
Don't talk
be
about it.
colorblind. No one sees anything. Racism exists.
How do you stop hunger? You stop counting the people that die from hunger.
Yeah, that's very pointed. And I think what people need to do, and what I'm trying to do too, is have conversations that could be uncomfortable, especially for white people. But like you're actually willing for any friend to actually talk to you about race,
100%,
and just to be genuine, to ask about it.
Some people, like, in a way, I don't want to be controversial, but my whole life is controversial. Like there's be points where I was having this conversation with my friend. I'm gonna use it, like, they called me this, not they didn't call me anything, but this guy, this angry dude, called me the N-word. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what does that mean for you? Why are you saying it? What does that mean? It's the force, and I knew his intention was to hurt me. I'm like, what does that mean for you? I don't really tend to like internalize that and make that hurt me, because I know your intention, so it doesn't. I have my own power, but what does that mean for you? And he just kept calling me, and I was like, I sat back. I'm like, this is pointless.
Yeah, there's such a good documentary about masculinity called The Mask You Live In. You would love it. I don't think I showed it to you. But it's talking to men who have killed people in their lives, and they're in juvenile lifers program. So they'll be in prison for potentially the rest of their lives. And I think something was very powerful in that he said one of the murderers said the way he's done his own work. You could done his own healing, and he said that the best way he's understood his ability to kill another human being is that he didn't see any sacredness or humanity in himself,
Yeah.
so it was really easy to not see it in other people.
Just like with like sex workers and stuff, we don't see it like their mothers, like their daughters are friends and all that. And that's why I show respect to every form of life, whatever journey you're going through.
Yes, and we also don't, when we talk about racism, um, or anti-racism, we don't talk about, we talk about the effects, and as we should focus on the effects of marginalized people. Don't hear me wrong, but we don't actually see that racism dehumanizes ourselves as well.
Yeah.
That not seeing the sacredness in other people is a reflection of how we view ourselves,
Yeah.
and of how
we're simply mirrors all throughout the conversation. Like even having conversations with random people on the street, I'm like, this is a mirror. I couldn't believe in someone else if I really didn't believe in myself. I couldn't have that affection, and vice versa. If I was a piece of like a POS and I was going out spewing, projecting my insecurities, it's because it was simply inside of me the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to stoke people down to the same way, because I'm, in a way, those people, like people who kill and all that, they live in a state of fear, a fear of not being in control, a fear of having everything go away, a fear of dying. So.
Mm-hmm. Abe, I have so many more things to say, but
so
and if we
right.
have this conversation, maybe we will have a similar conversation again.
Of course, you're always welcome back.
But
I
yeah,
love this.
anything you wanted to close on, or?
I just wanted to ask you this: what is? I know that I know that a lot of individuals are listening, like my friends, and there's some people that I put ads, so some people find this show intriguing. What's one thing you want to leave with for one person? You don't have to talk to the whole world. Just talk to this one person. It could be your own. It could be your younger self. It could be anything.
The one thing. Should I make it race relevant?
Anything relevant, masculinity. Just like I was gonna ask you, who did you have to be for your father, but that could go on.
Yeah, we should talk about that. You can interview me for that. Okay. I don't know if there's research to back this up. It's just something that I've heard that rings true. I have 3 young daughters. And there's a saying that the messages you find, the positive messages, well, actually, maybe the negative ones too, but I'm talking about positive ones for this. The positive messages you tell your kids, like over and over again, the things you find yourself repeating are things that your younger self needed to hear. And so I know probably your listeners don't have kids yet, and it might
some of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You also might be so out of your way to like imagine Abe at 5 years old. What could you say to your younger self? How would you have wanted to hold that racist experience that you had, that something was, you're the wrong type of brown? What would you have needed to hear? And can adult Abe talk to that 5-year-old Abe who was struggling, uncertain? Can there be healing brought that way? And that's something I do in my own life for my own things. I'll share one of the messages that I grew up thinking this world was very black and white. And so one thing I tell my children all the time is that they can change their minds if they have to. And you can change your mind about certain things. So that's something for me. And I think it's a powerful experience to go back. And it's not always the most manly thing to journal, but I do find that I have...
Whatever that means.
like journaling. Maybe you, sorry, you probably... making a joke, it went over my head. Turning to an old guy now. But yeah, journal. I have conversations between myself at younger ages and older ages, and I find that is a way to make it more concrete than this abstract thing of conversations with my 5-year-old self. Yeah, right. What are we talking about?
Get out of your head.
There's a lot of healing to be done in our child parts.
Yeah, and wow, that's very powerful, Mr. K. And I'm extremely grateful to have this conversation with you. And I don't know who's going to be grateful for this conversation as well, but I'm just posting this for the one individual that feels a certain way and feels the same way that I do, and even you. So I'm extremely grateful that you bring so much value. That's why you're here. And thank you for interviewing me. It's actually been very therapeutic. This is actually more raw. This is super raw. And thank you so much for everything, Mr. K. Thank you for hopping on and having this conversation with me. I'm extremely grateful.
Thank you for, can I share one more
Of
insight?
course, yeah.
Okay, because there's something called an AB reaction in therapy. My wife is a trauma therapist, and that when people share something super raw or vulnerable, which is so great, like I'm so glad you went there, but don't be worried or concerned if you find yourself having a reaction to that later of like, oh, I overshared, or like this panic feeling, or all these other things.
That's what happened last time. Really.
Okay.
That's why I'm like, when the audio didn't work at first, I'm not gonna lie, Mr. K. And then I was like, but I'm like, no, I have to have this conversation. That's why I kind of like forced it, but not forced it, but I was like, please, Mr. K, we have to have this conversation again.
I'm glad we did. If people don't know, the first recording got deleted, so we have this our second time having it. And it was very different the second time, and I'm glad we had it. But if anyone's still listening, thank you so much for listening. And oh yeah, is it okay if I just plug?
Of course, plug anything.
If you follow my Instagram, re.masculate, it's about gender, masculinity, emotional stuff. If you disagree with me, probably all the more important to be on there and engage with me, because if I'm doing a PhD in masculinity, I'd actually like to engage and to talk with people that have different opinions. Or yeah. And yeah, next week I'm talking on Tuesday. I don't know when you're gonna post this, but about
I'm probably gonna post this either Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Well, then you might have actually, you can still watch it, but disordered eating with men, and body image issues and orthorexia, which you don't know what orthorexia is, like health, unhealthy healthiness.
Oh,
but that's just a teaser. All right.
Yo, never mind. I was gonna ask a question, but it's all good. Okay. You wanted 45. We got an hour, by the way.
I know.
Thank you, Mr. K, for everything. Thank you for everyone who's listened. My voyage.